My shift starts at 6:30 in the morning, and the first thing I hear is not rain. It is a man in the hallway outside the communications room arguing with a county clerk about his mother's oxygen tank. He keeps saying the evacuation bus left her apartment complex without waiting for the second elevator trip. The clerk keeps saying the bus had to roll because Zone A was under mandatory evacuation, and the bridge authority might close the East Causeway before noon. Neither one sounds wrong. That is the first bad part of the day. Everyone sounds right, and every right answer makes another problem worse. I am sitting at the back radio table inside the Bayhaven County Emergency Operations Annex, a 2-story concrete building behind the old courthouse. I am not police. I am not fire rescue. I am a volunteer radio operator with a county badge on a plastic clip and a headset that pinches one ear after an hour. On paper, my job is simple. I relay messages from shelters, buses, highway patrol, boat crews, hospitals, and field teams when cell service gets overloaded. During hurricanes, old radio procedures come back into use because towers fail, phone networks choke, and nobody has time to wait for a clean digital report. I write down what I hear, repeat it to the right desk, and try not to add emotion. By 7 in the morning, the emotion is already in the room. Hurricane Juniper turned north overnight. Yesterday evening it was supposed to scrape the outer barrier islands and push water into the marsh. This morning the county meteorologist stands under the wall screens with wet hair and a shirt half tucked in, telling the emergency manager that the storm surge forecast has changed again. 9 to 12 feet in the bay, higher if the west wind holds, landfall after midnight, maybe earlier if the forward speed increases. All low roads east of the Intracoastal Canal need to be empty before late afternoon. The words come out flat because everyone in that room already knows what the words mean. The evacuation order went out before sunrise. People still waited. Some people had no car. Some people had pets, medicine, walkers, dead batteries, no gas, no money, no family, no patients left. Gas stations on Pelican Road ran dry before dawn. The county had 12 buses assigned for medical transport and 26 school buses for general evacuation, which sounds decent until a full neighborhood of single-story houses sits 3 feet above sea level, and water is already backing through storm drains. Every shelter list on my desk has a limit written beside it. East Ridge High School, capacity 900, Sable Creek Middle School, capacity 600, First Baptist Fellowship Hall, capacity 250, Pets Not Allowed, North Base Civic Center, capacity 1,200, Coastal Tech Gym, capacity 800 if cots are tight and the bleachers are used. At 7:17, the first strange report comes from Rescue 3. A paramedic named Jansen calls over County Medical Channel 1 and says he has an evacuee with a bite wound in a bus staging line behind Bayside Commons. The man was not bitten by a dog. Jansen says the bite came from another evacuee, an older woman in a wheelchair transport chair who became combative during loading. The dispatcher asks if law enforcement is needed. Jansen says yes, then changes his mind and says no, not yet, because the woman is weak, confused, probably overheated, and the bus driver wants to keep moving before the canal road floods. He asks where to route the bitten man. The hospital desk tells him all non-critical injuries go to shelter medical triage, unless airway, severe bleeding, or cardiac symptoms are present. I write it down, timestamp it, and pass the note to Miriam at the health desk. Miriam is a county health nurse who has worked every bad storm since I was in high school. She reads my note, frowns, and places it beside 6 other notes. I see the same words on 2 of them. Bite confused, dehydrated. She catches me looking and says, heat and panic do ugly things. Then her phone rings again and she turns away. By 8:10, evacuation traffic is stopped on the southbound span of the East Causeway. The road cameras show brake lights packed from the toll plaza to the rise over the shipping channel. Rain streaks across the camera housing. A highway patrol sergeant reports 3 stalled vehicles, 1 minor wreck, and people walking between lanes with bags over heads. He asks if buses can use the shoulder. The traffic desk says yes until the drawbridge. The bridge operator says no, because the shoulder is blocked by a pickup with a boat trailer. The emergency manager says clear it. The patrol sergeant says the owner is gone. Nobody knows where the owner went. At 8:42, Shelter 7, which is East Ridge High School, calls in. The shelter manager is Principal Dina Holt. She sounds controlled, but I can hear people shouting behind her in the gym. She reports that the first 2 buses arrived soaked because the staging area at Bayside Commons had ankle-deep water. 21 evacuees have small cuts from stepping through debris in the parking lot. 2 people vomited in the hallway. 1 man collapsed near the locker rooms and woke up fighting. She says fighting, not seizing. She asks if the county can send more gloves, disinfectant wipes, and 1 deputy for door control. The logistics desk says supplies are limited and the deputy request is pending. Principal Holt says pending is not a plan. Nobody answers her for 4 seconds. 4 seconds is a long time on a radio channel. I have lived here all my life. I know East Ridge. My daughter had a volleyball tournament there last spring. The gym is clean, bright, and loud even on a normal Saturday. During a storm, it becomes a place where strangers lie 6 inches apart on mats, where wet shoes are lined under bleachers, where bathroom floors never dry, where people touch the same door handles, outlets, water fountains, and handrails. That is normal shelter life. It is messy, but it works when the danger is wind and water outside the building. This morning we still believe the danger works that way. At 9:15, the county sheriff walks into the communications room with a paper cup of coffee and no hat. He talks to the emergency manager near the maps. I catch pieces of it because the radio traffic drops for a moment. Hospital security had to restrain 2 patients in the emergency department. 1 came from a traffic crash near the marina. The other came from a nursing home transport. Both had fever readings that made no sense for simple heat exhaustion. Both became violent without warning. 1 bit an orderly. The sheriff says he can send deputies, but he has 3 evacuation zones, 2 bridge closures, jail transport problems, and a storm coming at the county hard. The emergency manager asks if the hospital believes it is drugs. The sheriff says no one knows. Then the radio erupts again, and I stop hearing the rest. We keep moving people. That is the policy. You do not leave people in trailers, flooded apartments, motel ground floors, and beach houses because 1 hospital has violent patients. You do not cancel buses because 1 woman bit a man in a loading line. A hurricane does not pause for medical uncertainty. It pushes water through doors and lifts cars off roads. It takes the roof first, then the walls, then everything loose inside. I understand every reason we keep moving people. I still write the bite reports on a separate sheet without being told. By 10 in the morning, the rain becomes steady. It hits the annex windows with enough force to make conversation harder. The generator outside has already been tested twice, and the fuel contractor is late. The finance director keeps trying to call him from the hallway. Every time the call fails, he says the same 2 words, quiet and mean. The county amateur radio repeater on 147.210 MHz still works, and volunteers from inland neighborhoods start checking in with road conditions. Water across Harrow Street, tree down near the library, power flicker in North Bend, nursing home bus convoy leaving Delmer Court with 36 residents and 4 staff. 1 resident agitated possible dementia episode, requesting direct route to Coastal Tech, agitated, combative, heat sick, dehydrated, panic attack, dementia, storm stress. Every label sounds reasonable by itself. The pattern only shows when the notes sit beside each other. At 10:28, I call Miriam over before she can leave the room. I show her my sheet, 9 bite-related incidents in 3 hours, 3 violent collapses after transport, 2 reports of evacuees trying to bite staff after vomiting, 1 report from the hospital. She reads without interrupting. The shouting in the hallway continues. A man wants his mother's tank. A deputy wants barricade keys. A school district supervisor wants to know if buses are allowed to return through water above the curb. Miriam presses her thumb into the paper hard enough to bend it. Could be contaminated drugs, she says. Across shelters and nursing homes. Could be stress. That many bites? She looks at me then, and I know she has already thought the same thing. She does not say outbreak. She does not say infection. She says, keep copying everything. Use exact language. Do not guess over the air. That is the right instruction. It is also useless in the way right instructions become useless once a situation moves faster than policy. At 11:12, the first evacuation bus loses control of its passengers. Bus 17 left Bayside Commons for North Bay Civic Center. The driver, a school district employee named Carla Vance, calls on the transportation channel. Her voice is flat at first, almost bored. which scares me more than panic would. She says a male passenger in the rear rows attacked another passenger. 2 people tried to pull him off. He bit one woman on the hand and another man near the jaw. The driver pulled over near mile marker 11 on State Road 6 and asked for a deputy. Before dispatch can answer, Carla says the attacker is down in the aisle. Then she says he is moving again. Then she says the bitten man is not responding to people speaking to him. The transportation supervisor tells her to keep the doors closed and wait for law enforcement. The hurricane evacuation desk tells her not to stop on State Road 6 because that road will flood within the hour. The medical desk tells her to isolate the aggressive passenger if safe. Carla says there is no safe place to isolate anyone on a full bus. She says people are standing on seats. She says one of the injured women is begging to be let out. Rain hammers the bus roof through the open microphone. A child cries close to Carla's radio. Carla says, "Tell me where to go." Nobody answers fast enough. The emergency manager finally takes the microphone himself. He tells her to proceed to North Bay Civic Center with hazards on, keep the front door controlled, and have deputies meet the bus outside. Carla says she cannot drive with people fighting behind her. The emergency manager repeats the instruction. Slower. Proceed. Keep moving. Meet deputies outside. Carla says okay. She does not sound okay. At 11:40, the hospital switches to disaster status. At 11:51, the first shelter closes its front doors against county instruction. It is not East Ridge. It is First Baptist Fellowship Hall, a small shelter on higher ground that filled early because people trusted the church more than the county. The pastor, who is acting shelter manager, calls in and says he has 190 people inside, 8 volunteers, 4 bathrooms, and no deputy. He says a woman came in from the rain with blood on her sleeve and bit a volunteer during registration. The volunteer got lightheaded within 20 minutes. The woman then attacked a man in the kitchen line. He refuses to accept more evacuees until law enforcement arrives. The evacuation desk tells him he cannot deny entry during a mandatory evacuation. The pastor says he can and he will because people inside are now dragging tables against the doors. A county attorney gets called into the room. The attorney says shelters operating under county activation must follow county order. The sheriff says he cannot spare a unit for 15 minutes. The meteorologist says storm bands will worsen by 1 in the afternoon. The pastor keeps the radio keyed by accident, and we hear people inside the fellowship hall arguing with him. Someone says open the doors. Someone else says no. A woman keeps repeating that her husband is still outside under the awning. Hurricane rules say open. Infection rules, which we do not understand yet, say closed. For the first time that day, the room splits into 2 groups without anyone moving. People who have worked storms for 20 years stare at maps and radios and cannot agree on the basic rule of a shelter door. At 12:25, I get sent to East Ridge High School with a portable radio kit because the school's landline fails and the shelter manager keeps dropping out on the repeater. I do not want to leave the annex, but nobody asks if I want to go. The communications coordinator, a retired lineman named Bev, hands me a waterproof case, a spare battery, a paper frequency list, and 2 laminated signs that say Kankakee Communications. She tells me to ride with Deputy Mara Bell because Mara is already heading that way with door control orders. Bev looks at me once before I can leave and says, "Do not let anyone call this rabies on air. We do not know that." Outside, the day has turned ugly in a practical way. The parking lot is already holding water, and wind drives rain under the covered walkway. 2 county employees in rain jackets wrestle sandbags against the side entrance. A trash can rolls across the lot and pins itself against a county van. Deputy Mara sits behind the wheel of a sheriff's sport utility vehicle with the engine running, one hand on the wheel, one hand holding a radio near her mouth. She is younger than I expected, maybe 30, with her hair tied tight and no expression left for small talk. I climb in with the radio case on my lap. The drive to East Ridge should take 12 minutes. It takes 34. We pass gas stations with plastic bags over pump handles and people still parked at the islands. We pass a sedan angled into a ditch, trunk open, nobody near it. We pass a bus stopped under the overhang of a pharmacy, while the driver and 2 adults argue beside the open door. Mara slows, checks, and keeps going because dispatch says another unit is closer. At the intersection near Harrow Street, Water crosses the road in a brown sheet that hides the lane markings. Mara drives through slowly. The vehicle pushes a low wave into the curb. I look at the water and see leaves, wrappers, pine needles, one child's sandal, and something that could be a bandage. I pull my feet back even though the doors are sealed. East Ridge High School sits on higher ground, but the parking lots dip on both sides. Cars fill every space and half the grass. People keep arriving on foot from the apartment blocks south of the school. Some carry bags, some carry pets inside laundry baskets, some carry nothing. Rain has flattened hair, soaked shirts, and turned cardboard signs soft in people's hands. A line stretches from the front entrance to the bus canopy. 2 school staff members in yellow vests try to keep the line against the wall. A man in a wet football jersey shouts that his children are inside and his wife is still outside. A woman near the doors holds a towel over a cut on her cheek. Mara parks near the side entrance by the cafeteria loading area. Principal Holt meets us there with a handheld radio in one hand and a ring of keys in the other. She is in her 50s, wearing jeans, a school polo, and a rain jacket with the hood down. Her face has the hard calm of a person who has already used up the softer version of herself. She sees my communication sign and points me toward the administrative office beside the gym lobby. Set up there, county keeps dropping. I need a clean channel and I need someone at the county to hear me when I say no. Mara asks, no to what? Principal Holt looks toward the gym. No to mixing new arrivals with the people already dry. No to sending every sick person into the nurse's corner. No to pretending this is only dehydration. Inside, the smell hits first. Wet clothes, floor cleaner, old gym mats, sweat, cafeteria food warming in trays, and the sharp odor from a bathroom that has already lost control. The gym holds hundreds of people. Families are packed on mats. Elderly evacuees sit in folding chairs along the wall. Pawn chargers hang from power strips near the scorer's table. A generator thumps outside somewhere behind the building. Every door opening brings a push of wet air and more voices. I set the radio kit in the administrative office, run the antenna lead to a window, and check in with county communications. The signal is rough but usable. Bev answers from the annex, and for a moment I feel better because one familiar voice still exists inside the noise. I tell her East Ridge Mobile Station is active. Principal Holt stands over me while I say it. When I release the microphone, she says, tell them we need authority to split the shelter. Gym for cleared evacuees, cafeteria for wet arrivals until checked, upstairs classrooms for symptomatic people, door team at every entrance, no exceptions. I relay it. The health desk comes back after a delay and says shelter separation is recommended where practical. Recommended where practical is policy language that helps nobody in front of a locked door. Principal Holt takes the microphone from me, identifies herself and says, this is East Ridge Shelter Manager. I am implementing separation now. County can write me up after the storm. Mara says good. I do not know if it is good. I only know it is a decision. And decisions are better than waiting while people on the floor start watching the bathroom hallway. The first person I see change is not dramatic. He is a man in his 60s sitting under the home team basketball hoop with a towel around his shoulders. His wife keeps wiping his face with napkins from the cafeteria. He has a scrape on his shin, nothing deep, just a torn line where floodwater and parking lot dirt have dried against the skin. He stares at the floor and mumbles that he needs to go home. His wife tells him there is no home to go to until morning. He stands without warning, not fast, not strong, just wrong in the way his body ignores the woman pulling at his sleeve. He turns toward a teenager walking past with a paper cup. The teenager says, "Excuse me." The man grabs her wrist and bites down. The gym does not explode all at once. For 1 second, people near him do nothing because the action makes no sense. Then the teenager screams and jerks back. Her mother swings a tote bag at the man. A younger man tackles him from the side. The wife falls with them. People around the mat scramble away, dragging blankets, bags, and children. Mara moves before I do. She crosses the gym with her hand on her stun device and shouts for people to move back. Principal Holt grabs the public address microphone at the scorer's table and tells everyone to stay in place unless staff directs movement. Nobody listens perfectly, but enough people freeze that the whole gym does not crush itself at the doors. Mara and 2 school coaches restrain the man with zip ties from the emergency kit. He keeps trying to lift his head toward anyone close. No fear, no words, no attempt to protect his face when his shoulder hits the floor. His wife kneels beside him, crying and saying his name. Miriam's earlier words come back to me. Heat and panic do ugly things. I want that to be true. I want one ordinary explanation that can handle all of it. The teenager's wrist is cleaned in the nurse's corner. The bite broke skin. The nurse, a thin woman named Paula, keeps looking toward the restrained man while she wraps the wound. She asks me if county has new medical guidance. I call the health desk. It takes 3 tries. Miriam answers and gives the only guidance she has. Isolate aggressive patients, wash wounds with clean water, cover open skin, avoid contact with saliva and blood, use gloves, report fever or altered behavior. Paula laughs once without humor and says, "That is every school nurse poster ever printed." Then she keeps working because there is nothing else to do. By 2 in the afternoon, the front line outside East Ridge has doubled. Wind drives rain under the bus canopy and into the lobby. The storm is still hours from landfall, but outer bands are already bending trees over the parking lot. The school district sends 2 more buses from the coast, both overloaded. Principal Holt refuses to open the main doors wide. She orders arrivals through the cafeteria loading entrance, 1 family group at a time, shoes checked, visible wounds covered, wet clothing removed if spare clothes exist. Names written on paper because the registration laptops have no network. People hate it. People yell that the county told them to come here. People point at children and old parents. One man tries to force his way around Mara and ends up seated against a wall with a deputy's hand on his shoulder until he calms down. The cafeteria becomes the wet zone. That is what we call it, not because it sounds official, but because everyone understands it. Wet zone means floodwater exposure, open cuts, vomit, bites, or no information. Dry zone means people already inside with no symptoms and no visible wounds. Upstairs isolation means fever, confusion, aggression, or close contact with a biting incident. The system is ugly and incomplete. It depends on honesty, light, paper towels, tired volunteers, and people allowing strangers to look at arms and legs. Still, the moment the zones exist, the shelter feels less blind. I keep the radio beside the cafeteria doors and write reports on a clipboard wrapped in a plastic sleeve. The pencil works better than pens because the pages keep getting wet. A bus driver tells me a woman on his bus had red water on her shoes from a flooded ditch. A father tells me his son cut his palm on a broken sign outside their apartment. A deputy brings in a man with a bite on his forearm and says the bite came from his own brother during a fight over a seat. The brother is still outside, missing in the crowd. The man with the bite keeps saying his brother would never hurt anyone. I write it down. I do not know where to put grief on the form. At 2:55, the county issues a tornado warning for the inland edge of the storm band. All shelters are told to move people away from glass and exterior halls. This collides with our zone system immediately. The wet zone is in the cafeteria, which has high windows. The dry zone is in the gym, which is safer for wind. The isolation classrooms upstairs are near windows too. Hurricane logic says move everyone into interior hallways and the gym. Infection logic says do not mix the groups. Principal Holt stands in the corridor with a building map flat against the wall and makes a choice in less than 30 seconds. Wet arrivals move into the interior cafeteria storage hallway. Dry evacuees stay in the gym and locker room corridors. Isolation stays upstairs but moves away from windows into the central classroom wing. Nobody likes it. It is still a plan. The tornado warning passes without a touchdown near us. In that 20-minute shuffle, 2 people disappear from the wet zone. One is the bitten man who said his brother would never hurt anyone. The other is a teenage boy with a cut palm. We find the boy in the boys' locker room vomiting into a trash can, terrified and trying to hide because he thinks he will be thrown outside. He is not aggressive. Paula takes him upstairs with his mother. We do not find the bitten man. At 3:30, North Bay Civic Center calls county on the main repeater with a report that makes the room around me go quiet. I am not in the annex, but I can hear the silence over the channel. Bus 17 arrived there with multiple injured passengers. Deputies tried to remove the original attacker through the rear emergency door. During removal, 2 injured passengers became aggressive. One ran into the crowd under the entrance canopy. Another fell in the flooded drop-off lane, got up and attacked a deputy's boot and leg. The civic center manager says floodwater from the parking lot has entered the lobby. She says blood, vomit, rainwater, and tracked-in water are mixed across the tile. She asks whether to evacuate the civic center to the second floor or shut all movement. The county asks for injury count. She says she cannot count because people are slipping, fighting, and trying to leave through side doors. Then the transmission cuts. Principal Holt closes her eyes for 1 second. Mara says, "We are not becoming that." The front entrance at East Ridge gets locked with a chain through the push bars. That sounds cruel until I see what is happening outside. People are no longer arriving in a line. People are coming from the south apartments in clumps, soaked through, some limping, some carrying bags over heads, some dragging neighbors with unclear injuries. The parking lot water reaches the lower rims of car tires near the drainage ditch. Every step through it is contact with oil, mud, sewage from stressed drains, broken glass, lawn chemicals, and now maybe something worse. We do not know floodwater can carry the infection then. We do not know the exact rule. We only know the wettest people are getting sick faster. Mara keeps the cafeteria loading entrance active, because leaving everyone outside would be a death sentence once the worst wind arrives. But nobody enters without passing the door table. 2 volunteers sit behind it with gloves, masks, flashlights, paper forms, and a stack of towels. Paula trains 3 teachers to look for bites, strange confusion, and fresh cuts. She tells everyone to wash hands with bottled water, only if skin is broken because the bathrooms are losing pressure and the taps coughed brown. That scares people more than the bites for a while. Dirty water is an old fear in storm country. It needs no explanation. At 4:20, the missing bitten man is found behind the auditorium stage. He is crouched near the prop storage racks, facing the wall. A drama teacher named Mr. Klein finds him while looking for more folding chairs. The man turns and bites Klein through his sleeve. Klein shoves him away and backs into a pile of wooden flats. The noise brings Mara, 2 coaches, and me, because I am stupid enough to follow the radio call with a flashlight. The man does not talk. He does not act drunk. He rises with one hand twisted in the curtain fabric and moves toward the nearest body. Mara orders him to stop. He does not stop. She uses her stun device. He drops, jerks, then tries to get up again before the wires are removed. Mara looks at me, and I see the rule change in her face before she says it. Do not let anyone treat this as a normal restraint. The coaches use a maintenance cart and stacked tables to block the stage access door. After the man is secured inside a backstage storage room, he is not alone in there for long. The older man from the gym, the first one I saw bite the teenager, is moved from the nurse's corner to the same hallway because he will not stay still, and he keeps snapping at anyone within reach. His wife begs us not to put him with that other sick man. Principal Holt tells her he will have a monitor through the door window. The wife says he is afraid. I look through the glass and see no fear in his face. I do not say it. Wind rises after 5. It pushes against the school with long pressure changes that make ceiling tiles lift and settle. Power fails at 5:13. The gym lights go out, and hundreds of people make one sound together, a hard intake and then shouting. The generator starts 30 seconds later. Emergency lights come up first. Then the gym lamps return in sections, not all of them. Half the building stays dim. The public address system works on backup, but the cafeteria outlets die. Phone charging ends, the refrigerators in the kitchen stop. The mood changes fast. In a shelter, electricity is not comfort, it is order. Without it, every hallway becomes disputed space. County radio traffic worsens. The main repeater crackles. Some stations step on each other. The annex reports water in the lower parking lot, but the building remains operational. The East Causeway is closed. The South Bridge is closed. State Road 6 has water over the pavement near mile marker 14. The hospital emergency department is locked down after a security incident in the ambulance bay. Fire rescue is no longer responding to calls in Zone A unless life safety and safe access are both confirmed. That is a formal way to say some people are now beyond reach. At 5:40, we hear from a volunteer boat crew trying to evacuate residents from Bayou Crest, a low neighborhood west of the school. The crew leader says the water is already up to porch steps and rising. He has 8 people in the boat, including 2 children and 1 elderly man with a leg wound. The wound came from sheet metal in the water. The man is becoming confused. The boat crew asks which shelter can receive them by water. County says no shelter has a boat landing. The crew says the East Ridge athletic field fence line is accessible through the flooded drainage canal if a gate can be opened. Principal Holt says absolutely not until the group is screened. Mara says the field is lower than the building and may flood. The boat crew says staying in Bayou Crest will kill the people on board. There it is again. Open or closed. Weather or infection. The county gives no immediate answer. Principal Holt makes another choice. She sends the boat to the maintenance gate by the baseball field, not the main entrance. Mara, one coach, Paula, and I go with a rolling cart of towels, gloves, and flashlights. Rain hits sideways now. The wind shoves at our jackets. The field grass is already underwater in low spots, and the warning track has become mud. The boat's navigation light appears beyond the fence, bouncing in the dark gray rain. The crew noses through a break in the drainage ditch current and ties off to the chain-link gate. The people inside look ruined before anyone speaks. Wet, cold, angry, scared, one child silent under a plastic poncho. The elderly man with the leg wound sits in the middle of the boat with a towel wrapped around his calf. He keeps trying to touch his own face with the same hand that rests in bilge water. Paula tells him to keep his hands down. He does not seem to hear. When the gate opens, Mara brings people through one at a time, shows off at the field house door. Wounds visible, nums written, wet clothing into trash bags if spare clothes exist. Nobody enters the main shelter until checked. The boat crew hates the delay. I hate the delay. The children shake in the rain while adults argue under a roof that barely covers half the walkway. Then the elderly man lifts his head and clamps his mouth onto the wrist of the boat crew leader, helping him stand. It happens at arm's length from me. The crew leader yells and punches him once in the shoulder. Mara pulls the crew leader back. The elderly man slips, falls into the shallow water at the gate, and tries to crawl toward Paula, not stand. Crawl, his bandage unwinds in the water. Paula backs up and says, "Do not touch that water. Do not touch him barehanded." That is the first time anyone says the water rule out loud. We leave the elderly man outside the field gate for 7 minutes. I know because I write it down later and cannot stop thinking about the number. The storm is worsening. The man is injured, confused, and lying in dirty water. Every hurricane procedure says bring him in. Every new thing we have learned says no bare contact, no shared hallway, no contaminated water in the shelter. Mara finally gets help from 2 firefighters who arrive in a high water truck for another call and divert to the school. Wearing protective gear, the firefighters move him into the fieldhouse storage room, separate from the main building. It is not clean, it is not kind. It is the least bad option anyone can do with wind rising and no ambulance coming. The boat crew leader's wrist is washed with bottled water in the equipment room. He keeps saying the old man was fine 10 minutes earlier. The old man was talking. The old man was complaining about his leg, asking about his daughter, wanting a blanket. The crew leader repeats it because the change makes no sense. Paula wraps the wrist and marks his name on red tape across his sleeve. Red tape means bite contact. Red tape means upstairs isolation if he becomes symptomatic. Red tape also means other people stare. At 6:30, the county emergency manager issues a new shelter directive. I copy it over the radio while Principal Holt reads over my shoulder. All shelters, separate new wet arrivals from existing population where facility layout permits. Prioritize wound covering and hand washing, direct movement between zones, report biting incidents immediately. Do not use term zombie, rabies, or undead in official traffic. Use aggressive infected person or altered person pending medical confirmation. The word infected sits in the directive. It is the first official word that admits the day has changed. People in the gym do not hear it directly, but rumors move faster than radio. By 7, people are saying the county knows. People are saying it is in the rain. People are saying the buses brought it. People are saying the hospital released sick people. People are saying anyone with a cut should be put outside. Principal Holt gets on the public address system and tells the shelter that no one will be put into the storm because of a rumor. She says movement rules are changing because water and close contact may be unsafe. She does not lie and say everything is under control. Because of that, some people trust her for another hour. At 7:20, the bathrooms become the worst place in the building. The gym bathrooms have lines out the doors. Water pressure drops, then returns weak and discolored. Toilets clog. People wipe surfaces with school paper towels that turn useless when wet. A woman faints in the women's line and wakes up clawing at the person trying to help her. She has no visible bite. She has a fresh cut above one eyebrow from a car door earlier, and she spent half an hour in the parking lot water before entry. That detail reaches me from Paula in a low voice. Paula says, "It is not just bites." We do not announce that. There is no proof yet. There is observation. Observation is enough to change how I move. I stop touching my face. I stop kneeling on wet floors. I keep my sleeves down and my gloves on until the inside is damp. Then I change gloves even though supplies are limited. I step around every puddle in the hallway. It feels ridiculous inside a hurricane shelter where the whole building is wet, but it also feels necessary. The woman from the bathroom line is moved upstairs. Her husband refuses to let go of her and gets dragged halfway up the stairwell by school staff before Mara stops everyone. The husband is not violent. He is scared and loud and convinced we are stealing his wife. Principal Holt speaks to him on the landing for 3 minutes while wind bangs rain against the stairwell glass. She tells him he can sit outside the classroom door, but he cannot go inside without gloves and a mask. He says he will sign anything. She says this is not paperwork. He goes quiet after that. At 8, we get word that First Baptist has lost the fellowship hall. The pastor comes over the radio with a voice stripped down to function. He says multiple altered persons in the main room, doors barricaded from inside, several people trapped in a storage office, water entering through the rear kitchen door, no safe deputy access due to downed power lines and rising water. He asks if the county can send a bus to the north entrance. The transportation desk says no buses available. Roads unsafe. He asks for rescue after the eye wall. The county says all rescue will be prioritized by survivability and access. The pastor says, "Then write that we are still alive in here." The channel stays quiet after he releases. Nobody at East Ridge speaks for a moment. Even the gym noise seems lower. Principal Holt looks at the radio and says, "We keep our doors." By 8:30, keeping doors means saying no to people standing outside in hurricane rain. That is where the day becomes something I do not know how to judge. A group of 15 arrives from the south apartments, including a woman in labor pains, her sister, a man with a broken hand, and several older residents. The wind is strong enough to make people stagger in the open. The parking lot water reaches mid-calf near the bus canopy. The group pounds on the front glass, because the cafeteria entrance is on the other side of the building and partly hidden. People inside the gym see them. A crowd forms at the locked front doors, shouting for staff to open. Principal Holt refuses to use the main entrance. Mara and I lead 2 teachers through the interior hall to the cafeteria loading door and signal the group around the building with flashlights. The group does not understand at first. The woman in labor cries out and bends forward under her sister's arms. People inside scream at us to open the glass. Mara points her flashlight toward the cafeteria side again and again. Finally, the sister understands and starts moving the group along the wall. One older man slips in the water. The man with the broken hand tries to lift him one-handed and cannot. I step toward the door without thinking. Mara catches my jacket and says, "No door stays." I want to hate her for it. I cannot. The main doors open inward into the gym lobby. If 15 soaked people push through with floodwater, blood, unknown wounds, and panic, the dry zone is gone. We have one working separation system, and it depends on door control. I stand inside and watch the older man crawl to his knees while wind pushes rain across his face. The sister comes back for him. Together the group reaches the cafeteria entrance. It takes 2 minutes. It feels longer because everyone inside can see it. The pregnant woman is not infected. She is exhausted, frightened, and too far from any hospital. Paula and 2 women from the shelter make a space for her in the old teacher lounge near the office because it is interior, small, and away from the gym. The man with the broken hand has cuts between his fingers from a fall in the parking lot. He gets marked for wet zone observation. The older man who slipped has no bite, no fever, no confusion. He keeps apologizing for making us watch him. That breaks something in me more than anger would have. At 9:12, the eye wall warning goes out. The worst wind will arrive within 2 hours. All exterior movement should cease. Anyone not inside a safe structure needs immediate shelter. The county repeats it on emergency broadcast. Phones that still work shriek with alerts. Radios clip and overlap. At the same time, the health desk tells shelters to stop accepting unprocessed arrivals into main shelter populations and use isolated entry points only. Those two orders do not fit together. Both are necessary. Both can kill. East Ridge becomes a small county of its own. Principal Holt runs it from a folding table in the gym lobby. Mara commands the doors because nobody else has the authority or the steadiness. Paula runs triage with teachers, lunchroom workers, and one retired nurse who is sheltering with her grandson. I run communications and become the person everyone comes to when a radio answer is needed. I do not have answers. I have a channel, a pencil, and a growing list of places in the county where things are going wrong. At 9:40, Sable Creek Middle School reports that a group of altered persons is moving along the fence line outside the shelter, drawn by exterior lights and voices at the entrance. Fresh infected. That is what the deputy on scene calls them, then corrects himself and says altered persons. The group is not running, but the movement is steady. The deputy says the people ignore rain, debris, and shouted commands. Some are shelter evacuees still wearing paper wristbands. One keeps slipping in roadside water and getting back up. Sable Creek requests permission to kill exterior lights. The county says yes, maintain interior emergency lighting. 5 minutes later, Sable Creek reports the group has turned toward a running generator behind the cafeteria. That gives Principal Holt an idea she does not want. I see her reject it twice before she says it. The East Ridge generator is loud and real and attached to our survival. The stadium across the athletic field has an independent maintenance power unit for the scoreboard and public address system, used during football season and tested before storms. The stadium is not occupied. The field is partly flooded. If the altered persons outside are drawn by sound and light, maybe the shelter can make something else more interesting than the doors. No one builds anything dangerous. No one creates a trap. 2 maintenance workers and a coach route power from the field unit already in place set the scoreboard lights low and use the stadium public address speaker to play a repeating evacuation tone at low volume. The sound carries through wind in broken pieces. It is not loud enough to guide a rescue crew. It is loud enough to pull attention from the building. The decision feels desperate and ugly because any person still wandering near the field might follow it too. Principal Holt orders volunteers with flashlights to watch from upper windows. If living evacuees head that way, staff will signal them back toward the cafeteria entrance. That is the plan. It is full of holes. Every plan is full of holes now. At 10:15, the first altered people appear in the east parking lot. I see them from the second-floor science hall while helping carry a spare radio battery upstairs. 4 figures move between parked cars with the strange steadiness we have started to recognize. The wind pushes rain hard enough that normal people keep heads down and arms up. These figures do not protect faces. One is wearing a hospital gown under a plastic poncho. One has a backpack still hanging from one shoulder. One is a woman in a bright orange evacuation vest, probably a volunteer from another shelter or bus line. The stadium tone starts again, and all 4 turn toward it, not together, not smart, just drawn by the sound. They move past the school side doors and toward the football field gate. A teacher beside me whispers, "Do we stop them?" I do not answer. The truth is no, we do not stop them. We watch 4 human bodies move away from the building because our shelter has hundreds of people inside and no safe way to handle 4 altered persons at the door. The teacher starts crying quietly and wipes her face with the back of her wrist. I tell her not to touch her eyes. It is the wrong thing to say and the only useful thing I have. At 10:40, the storm hits harder than anything earlier in the day. The building shakes in pieces. Rain forces water under doors. Ceiling leaks open in the main hall. Someone in the gym starts a rumor that the roof is coming off, and 10 people rush the lobby before Mara and the coaches stop them. Principal Holt uses the public address again. She tells people the roof is intact, staff are checking leaks, and everyone must stay away from exterior doors. Her voice cracks on the word must, not from fear but from overuse. The gym settles into a tense, bitter quiet full of small sounds. Plastic bags, wet shoes, coughing, children asking questions adults cannot answer. The upstairs isolation rooms are worse. I go up at 11 with Paula because the radio in room 2 is failing. and she does not want to go alone. We have 8 people in 4 classrooms. 2 are bite victims with no symptoms yet. 1 is the teenage boy with the cut palm and vomiting. 1 is the boat crew leader. 1 is the woman from the bathroom line, now restrained in a chair with sheets and watched by her husband from the hall. 2 are older evacuees with confusion that may be dementia, infection, exhaustion, or all of it. 1 is Mr. Klein, the drama teacher, sitting with his bitten arm wrapped and his eyes fixed on the floor. Mr. Klein knows enough to be afraid of himself. That makes him different from the changed people. He asks Paula how long before he knows. Paula says she does not know. He asks if a bite is always bad. Paula says no one can say. He looks at me because I have the radio, because the radio means county, because county is supposed to know things. I tell him the health desk is still gathering reports. That is true and not enough. He nods and says, if I start acting wrong, do not let me near the gym. Then he apologizes for making me hear it. At 11:30, the woman from the bathroom line stops recognizing her husband. She pulls against the sheets and tries to bite through the cloth gag Paula placed after the last attempt. Her husband sits outside the door with both hands over his mouth. He does not cry now. He watches the door window and rocks slightly on a plastic chair. I key the radio and request medical evacuation after the eye wall. County answers with a priority code, then admits no ambulance can move until wind drops below safe limits and roads are checked. We already know that. We ask anyway because asking is part of staying human. Near midnight, the cafeteria wet zone fails for 8 minutes. A side service door that should have been locked is opened from inside by a man who wants to smoke under the overhang. He has been warned twice. He thinks the rules are stupid. He thinks the county is overreacting. He thinks a cigarette outside is his right, because he is not sick, because he has been sitting near the kitchen for 4 hours, because people always believe personal exceptions matter more than public danger. The wind catches the door and slams it against the stopper. Rain blows into the service hall. 2 people from outside, or maybe from the covered trash area, force themselves in before the man can pull the door closed. 1 is a living woman with a baby carrier wrapped in a garbage bag. The other is altered. The living woman falls against the dishwashing station, screaming that the man followed her from the parking lot. The altered man moves toward the nearest sound. A cafeteria worker hits him with a mop handle, not hard enough to stop him, hard enough to turn him. He grabs her apron and snaps at her face. Mara arrives and fires her sidearm once into the floor near him, not at him, because people are behind him and she is trying to stop the room from rushing. The sound shuts everyone down for half a second. The coaches use that half second to drive a table between the altered man and the worker. Mara and the coaches pin him behind the table until firefighters from the field house reach the door in protective gear. It is messy, loud, and not heroic. It is 6 people doing ugly work in a room that smells of bleach and stormwater. The cafeteria worker is not bitten. The smoking man has a scrape across his forearm from the door frame and rainwater on it. He keeps saying he did not know. A mother in the wet zone spits at his shoes. Principal Holt orders him upstairs for observation. He refuses until Mara tells him he can walk upstairs or be carried. He walks. The woman with the baby carrier is checked. The baby is alive, cold, and angry. The woman has no bite but has cuts on both feet from walking through debris after her car flooded 2 blocks away. She says 3 people followed her in the parking lot. She says 1 was a sheriff's deputy. Mara hears that and goes still. She asks for a description. The woman says she could not see the face, just tan uniform pants, black rain jacket. 1 hand bent wrong. Mara keys her shoulder radio and tries to reach the unit assigned to the south apartments. No answer. After midnight, time breaks into tasks. I stop thinking about morning. I stop thinking about landfall. I think about batteries, doors, forms, names, wound checks, radio clarity, hallway movement, and where my boots have been. The hurricane becomes a constant force against the building, loud enough to erase thought when a gust hits broadside. Water creeps under the cafeteria doors despite towels. The janitor shows us where to place more sandbags, then admits he is not sure how many exist because the storage closet flooded from the outside wall. Food service switches from hot trays to sealed snacks and bottled water because the kitchen floor cannot stay clean. People complain. People apologize for complaining. People ask for medicine we do not have. At 12:46, The county annex loses its main antenna. Bev comes through on the backup repeater, faint and clipped, saying the mast is damaged, but the Emergency Operations Center remains active. She asks all shelter stations to check in on the backup schedule. Sable Creek answers, Coastal Tech answers, North Bay Civic Center does not, First Baptist does not, East Ridge answers, 2 inland shelters answer. A special needs shelter at the community college answers with a generator fuel warning, and 3 suspected infected patients contained in a maintenance corridor. Bev copies everything. I can hear tired people behind her. She keeps her voice steady because radio voices become structure when buildings and plans start failing. At 1:15, the eye wall moves over the county. The sound changes. It does not become quiet, it becomes uneven. Wind drops for a few minutes, then returns from a different direction, harder against doors we thought were protected. The stadium tone dies because the field unit floods or fails. Almost immediately, altered persons in the field begin drifting back toward the school lights. We see them from upper windows, moving through shin-deep water near the track, slipping and rising. More than 4 now, maybe 12, maybe more beyond the fence. Some wear shelter bands, some wear hospital blankets, some wear normal clothes plastered to skin by rain. I do not count children. I refuse to count children, and then hate myself, because refusing does not change what is outside. Principal Holt orders all ground floor window shades closed where possible. Exterior doors remain locked except the controlled cafeteria entrance, which is now closed unless staff visually confirms a living person and has a safe path to process him or her. That order means some people outside may not be seen. Everyone understands, no one says it. At 1:37, the old rule dies completely. A man pounds on the cafeteria loading door with both fists and yells that his wife is outside. Staff see him on the camera first, then through the little wire-reinforced window. He is living. He speaks clearly. He has a cut on his scalp and another on his forearm. Behind him, 2 altered persons move through the rain toward the sound of his fists. He begs us to open. Mara tells him through the door to move to the right, away from the glass, and show his hands. He shows his hands. One is covered in muddy water. The altered person's close distance. The man turns and sees them. He screams for his wife again, but there is no wife visible, only rain, parked cars, and moving bodies. Mara opens the door 6 inches with the security chain still on. The man tries to shove through the gap. The chain holds. His wet sleeve pushes inside. Paula shouts that he has an open cut. Mara tells him to stop pushing or the door closes. He does not stop. One altered person grabs him from behind. The man's face hits the wire glass. He looks at me through it for 1 second with full understanding that we are not going to get him through fast enough. Then he is pulled out of sight. I do not describe what happens after that because I do not watch all of it. I step back and look at the floor. Mara closes the door, locks it, and stands with her forehead near the metal for 1 second. Then she turns around and tells everyone to move the processing table farther from the entrance in case the glass breaks. Her voice works. That is the kind of strength the night demands. Not speeches, not bravery. Function after a decision that will stay in the body for the rest of a life. The gym hears enough to understand someone was denied entry. Anger comes fast. A group of men near the bleachers accuse staff of deciding who lives. One says the county cannot make people die outside. Another says the sick people should be thrown out instead. A third says he saw infected in the gym earlier and nobody knows who is already contaminated. The argument grows. Mara is at the cafeteria door. Principal Holt is upstairs. I am the county person standing nearest the men, which is bad luck and nothing more. I tell them the truth that helps least. Opening uncontrolled doors puts everyone inside at risk. New arrivals must be screened. The storm makes rescue impossible. The wet zone is full. The upstairs rooms are close to full. No one is being thrown out. No one is safe because he or she got inside earlier. We are reducing risk, not removing it. A man with a shaved head steps close enough that I can smell rainwater on his shirt. He says his wife is diabetic and the county lost her insulin bag during bus loading. He says he is tired of rules from people with radios. I do not argue. I ask his wife's name and where she last had the bag. That redirects him for 10 seconds. 10 seconds gives Principal Holt time to arrive with Mara behind her. Principal Holt does not raise her voice. She tells the gym that any attempt to force a door will move the shelter from dangerous to lost. She says, Staff will continue to process living arrivals where possible. She says no one gets authority to sacrifice the whole building because fear demands action. She uses the word fear, and a few people flinch because she names what everyone is trying to hide. The shaved head man looks away first. The group breaks apart slowly, not because anyone is satisfied, because the next gust hits the roof and reminds everyone the hurricane still owns the outside. At 2:10, Mr. Klein turns upstairs. Paula is with him when it happens. He had been lucid, feverish, apologetic, and calm. Then he stops mid-sentence while asking for water. He looks at Paula's hands, not her face. She backs away because she has learned the signs. He stands. He moves toward her. She exits the room and closes the door before he reaches it. No bite, no fight. The sheet restraint is no longer used in isolation rooms after that. Doors become the restraint. The boat crew leader turns at 2:32, faster than Klein. He had more floodwater exposure through the wrist wound. That is our note. It may be wrong, but every person with water in an open wound seems to worsen faster. The teenage boy with the cut palm does not turn. He sweats, vomits, cries, sleeps, wakes, asks for his mother, and remains himself. That uncertainty keeps hope alive in a damaging way. If every exposure meant infection, decisions would be simpler and crueler. Instead, we wait and watch people who may recover and people who may not. We fear kindness because kindness requires closeness. At 3 in the morning, the annex sends a county-wide bulletin through every channel still working. The health department has confirmed, based on hospital and shelter reports, that aggressive altered persons may transmit illness through bites and fluids. Floodwater contact with open wounds is suspected as a risk. Avoid contact with mouths, blood, vomit, and contaminated water. Cover all wounds. Do not wade unless immediate life safety requires it. Keep shelter populations separated by exposure status. Report clusters. Await state guidance. State guidance, the words sound distant. The state capital is inland and dry. The people writing guidance are not looking at our cafeteria floor, our locked doors, our flooded baseball field, or the husband sitting outside the room where his wife keeps throwing herself against a classroom door until she tires and starts again. At 3:20, the Community College Special Needs Shelter reports it is moving stable patients to the second floor because water has entered the ground-level hall. The elevator is not working. Staff are carrying people upstairs one at a time. 3 altered persons are contained behind a fire door near the maintenance corridor, but water is rising there too. If the water reaches the door hardware or pressure shifts debris, containment may fail. A nurse asks if altered persons can drown. No one answers. Someone at the county says, "Do not speculate over the air." The nurse says, "I am not speculating. I am asking if the things behind the door can come up the stairs underwater." The channel goes silent except for static. We learn the answer later from the street, not from the college. At 3:45, the woman in labor delivers a baby in the teacher lounge during the backside of a hurricane and the first night of the outbreak. I am not in the room. I am in the hallway outside with the radio turned low, repeating county traffic to a shelter volunteer who keeps asking if ambulances can move yet. The baby cries once, weak but real, and the hallway changes. People hear it through the door. For 30 seconds, even the gym quiets. The mother is exhausted but conscious. The baby is wrapped in clean towels taken from the athletic department laundry, still sealed in plastic before the storm. Paula steps out with blood on her gloves and a look that tells everyone not to crowd her. She says both are alive. She says she needs clean water and no visitors. Nobody argues. That birth does not redeem the night. It does not balance the people outside or upstairs. It is simply a thing that happens because life does not wait for a safer calendar. It gives the shelter one clear instruction for the next minute. Protect that room. Sometimes one clear instruction is enough to keep people moving. At 4:10, the worst wind begins to move away. Rain continues. The school still shakes, but the violent pressure eases. People in the gym start asking if it is over. Principal Holt refuses to announce the end. She says the storm is still dangerous until official clearance. She is right. The roads are flooded, power lines are down, and altered persons are outside. But people hear the lower wind and begin to think about leaving. Home pulls hard after a hurricane. People want to check houses, pets, vehicles, medicine, neighbors, damage. In normal storms, shelter managers fight early departures every time. This morning, early departure could spread infection into every flooded street. At 4:35, Mara's missing deputy from the south apartments appears at the side fence. His name is Rusk. Mara spots him through the second-floor window and almost runs before stopping herself. He is standing in water near the maintenance gate, one hand on the fence, head tilted toward the school. His uniform pants and black rain jacket match the woman's description. His face is partly hidden by rain. Mara keys her shoulder radio and calls him by name. He does not respond. She calls again. He turns toward the sound, not the words. Mara lowers the radio slowly. No one tells her what to do. That would be insulting. She watches him for less than a minute. Then she orders the field gate left locked and tells the window team to keep lights off in that hallway. She walks downstairs and checks every exterior door personally. When she returns, her eyes are red, but her voice is steady. She asks me if County has any word from Sheriff Lane. I tell her no. She nods and says, "Copy." At 5, water in the parking lot begins moving in a slow current toward the east drainage ditch. Dawn is still not up, but the sky outside the cafeteria windows loses some black. The altered persons become easier to see and harder to dismiss. Some stand in water without purpose until sound draws them. Some bump against parked cars. Some follow one another because one noise becomes many footsteps. A few are trapped in vehicles, moving against windows after having turned inside. One school bus near the far curb rocks slightly with movement inside it. We do not know how many people are living in that bus, if any. The bus driver never checked in after 10 at night. County asks each shelter for sunrise status. East Ridge reports generator running, fuel estimate uncertain, 1,032 registered evacuees, wet zone at capacity, isolation rooms at capacity, multiple confirmed altered persons contained, exterior altered persons present, no safe road access, medical supplies low, food limited, potable water adequate for the morning if rationed. I say it cleanly. I do not say we are afraid of the bathrooms. I do not say the cafeteria floor may be dangerous. I do not say a newborn is sleeping behind a teacher lounge door while infected people stand in hurricane water outside. Radio reports compress reality until it becomes bearable to transmit. At 5:22, the sun begins to show without showing itself. The clouds lighten over the eastern roofs. The hurricane has passed inland, leaving hard rain and gusts. The county radar feed is down at the school. But Bev says the center is north of us and weakening. Damage assessment teams are waiting for first safe light. No one is authorized to self-deploy. That order fails immediately across the county because people always leave after storms. And now people are leaving into contaminated water. The first departure attempt at East Ridge comes from the gym. A man and his adult son cut the chain at a rear equipment door with bolt cutters from a maintenance closet. I do not know where they found the cutters. Maybe the closet was never locked. Maybe someone had keys. Maybe this is the part where every rule fails, because a building full of people contains too many private decisions. The door opens into the service alley behind the gym. Water rushes over the threshold. The man steps out, then jumps back because two altered persons turn from behind the dumpsters. His son tries to close the door, slips on the wet floor, and puts his hand down into the water now spreading across the gym edge. The altered persons hit the door from outside. People scream. The chain is gone. The door will not latch because debris is caught under it. Mara, the coaches, and 3 volunteers push a rolling equipment rack against the door. The son keeps looking at his palm. He has a fresh cut from the floor. His father says it is nothing. Paula says it is not nothing. The father argues until the son tells him to stop. That quiets him. The son is maybe 23, soaked to the knees, embarrassed, scared, and already understanding that his one bad step may have changed his whole life. He goes to the wet zone without being forced. His father follows, not because of rules, but because shame has drained the fight from him. The gym floor near the rear door is marked off with chairs and caution tape. People move their mats away. A woman complains that her sleeping spot is gone. Then she sees the dirty water under the chairs and stops. Nobody wants to be near water anymore. 12 hours earlier, wet clothes were inconvenience. Now every damp patch on the floor becomes a warning sign. People step around leaks. People hold children away from puddles. People check old cuts and scratch marks under sleeves. People who laughed at gloves now ask for gloves we no longer have enough to give. At 6 in the morning, Sheriff Lane finally comes over the county channel. He is at the annex, not in the field. He says, the State Emergency Operations Center has been briefed. National Guard high-water vehicles are staging inland but cannot enter until routes are cleared. Hospitals are locked down and accepting only controlled transfers. All shelters are to remain closed to general movement until exterior assessment and infection screening are established. People are not to wade through floodwater unless staying in place creates immediate danger. Anyone with bites, fluid contact, or open-wound floodwater exposure must be isolated if possible. Anyone showing altered behavior is not to be physically restrained without protective barriers. He says the county understands this conflicts with standard hurricane recovery behavior. He says standard hurricane recovery behavior is suspended. That sentence is the real announcement. Standard recovery is suspended. Do not go check your house. Do not walk through your street. Do not help someone bleeding in the water without barriers you probably do not have. Do not open your door just because the storm has passed. Do not assume the shelter is safe because the roof held. At 6:20, Bev asks if I can make a public relay from East Ridge because the school antenna is reaching neighborhoods south of the county annex better than the damaged main mast. Principal Holt looks at me when the request comes through. Mara looks at me too. I am not a broadcaster. I have read weather bulletins at volunteer drills and called in road reports. I have never told a county how to survive the morning after a hurricane when floodwater itself may be carrying infection through cuts and mouths and eyes. Bev says she will feed me the official language. I tell her to send it. I sit at the administrative office desk where I set up the radio the previous afternoon. The window beside me is streaked with rain. The hallway outside is full of people sitting against walls because the gym has become too crowded and too tense. Someone nearby is praying under his breath. Someone else is trying to calm a dog inside a carrier. The baby in the teacher lounge cries again, stronger this time. Upstairs, doors remain closed. Bev reads the bulletin in sections. I write it by hand because the printer is down. My handwriting gets worse near the bottom. Principal Holt edits 2 sentences for clarity. Mara adds 1 line about not opening doors to unknown persons without visual screening, and then she stares at the paper until Principal Holt tells her it is okay to include it. Paula adds wound language. Cover cuts. Keep contaminated water away from eyes and mouth. Wash with clean bottled water when possible. Do not share towels used on wounds. She says it twice and makes me write clean bottled water. Not tap if tap is discolored. Not floodwater. Not rain caught off a roof with debris in it unless no other option exists. At 6:38, I key the microphone and transmit on the county emergency relay, the school shelter channel, and the amateur backup net. My voice sounds too calm in my own headset. I say my name, my station, and the location. I say this is an official county relay from East Ridge Shelter. I say the hurricane has passed our area, but emergency conditions continue. I say roads remain flooded. Power lines are down, bridges are closed, and rescue crews are not yet moving in all areas. I say there are confirmed reports of aggressive infected persons in multiple shelters, hospitals, roadways, and flooded neighborhoods. I say infection appears to spread through bites and body fluids, and floodwater contact with open wounds may be dangerous. I say avoid waiting unless immediate safety requires movement. I say cover all cuts. Keep dirty water away from eyes and mouth. Do not touch injured strangers barehanded if fluid exposure is possible. Do not open shelter doors without screening. Do not leave shelters to check property. Stay on upper floors if floodwater is inside. Separate wet arrivals from dry shelter population. Report altered behavior through radio, text, or runner only if safe. Do not create crowds at doors. I pause because the next line is not in the official bulletin. Principal Holt sees me look at it. She nods once. I say hurricane survival rules are no longer enough. Water crowds and shelter doors now have different rules. The storm moved people together. The infection moved with the people. Treat every flooded hallway, parking lot, and bus step as possible exposure. Help when help can be given without losing the shelter. Do not turn fear into a stampede. Do not turn kindness into barehanded contact with blood or floodwater. Stay separated, stay above water. Keep doors controlled, wait for organized rescue. When I release the microphone, the room stays quiet, not peaceful, just quiet. Bev comes back after a delay and says, East Ridge, county copies. Good relay. Her voice breaks on good and recovers immediately. At 7, daylight shows what the night hid. From the second-floor hallway, I can see the south apartments beyond the school. First-floor units are flooded. Cars sit at angles, some against curbs, some half in ditches. People stand on balconies and rooftops. A few wave towels. A few do not move. In the street between the apartments and the school, altered persons walk through waist-deep water in places where the pavement dips. Some stumble and disappear, then rise when the ground lifts under them. The water carries trash, branches, and things I do not want to identify. It also carries the day's real danger from one place to another without needing a road. A woman on a balcony across the street lifts a child onto a plastic storage bin and points toward our school. She sees the building and thinks shelter. She does not see our full gym, our wet zone, our isolation rooms, our locked doors, our low supplies, our altered deputy at the field fence, our taped-off puddles, our choices. She only sees a place that survived the wind. I understand her. Yesterday that would have been enough. Mara stands beside me at the window. She watches the street, not the balcony. We are going to have to bring some of them in, she says. Yes, we cannot bring all of them in. No, she nods without looking at me. Then we need a better door. That becomes the morning's work, not survival in a grand way. A better door, a second table, a clearer wet path, more towels, more signs, a rope line through the cafeteria so people do not drift into the dry zone. Upper floor rooms emptied of supplies and turned into observation spaces. A whiteboard with names, a radio schedule. A volunteer assigned only to remind staff not to touch faces. Another volunteer assigned only to watch the bathroom hall. A decoy speaker moved farther from the building. Once the field water drops enough for maintenance to reach the control box. Small things, real things, things that can fail but still give people a chance. By 8, the first organized rescue team reaches the north side of East Ridge in a high-water truck. The crew looks exhausted already. The truck carries 6 evacuees from a duplex roof, 2 with covered wounds, 1 with a bite from a neighbor during the night. The crew has learned enough to stop at the outer processing point without being told. That gives me a strange, hard relief. The rules are spreading faster now, too. Not only the infection, the rules. The bitten evacuee is a woman in work pants and a rain jacket, maybe 40. Calm enough to tell Paula exactly when it happened, around 3 in the morning. Neighbor became violent after being pulled from floodwater, bite through sleeve, skin broken. She washed it with bottled water because her son heard a bulletin from our relay on a handheld radio. Her son is 16 and refuses to leave her side. Paula tells him he can sit outside the observation room door. He asks if his mother will die. Paula says, I do not know. He accepts the truth better than some adults accepted lies. At 9, County asks East Ridge to serve as a controlled intake site for the south apartments, because our building still has radio, generator power, and access from the North Road by high-water truck. Principal Holt almost laughs when she hears the request. Then she says yes because saying no would leave balcony people in rising heat after a storm with infected in the street. The yes is not simple. The yes comes with conditions. Intake by truck only. No self-waiting entries except immediate life safety. Wet exposure stays cafeteria and upstairs. Dry population stays gym and interior halls. No pets outside carriers. No unsearched bags in the gym because bottles of unknown water and bloody towels have already caused fights. County accepts because county needs a working site. I spend the next hour writing names and radioing counts. The shelter becomes harsher and more organized. That combination is what saves it. People hate the red tape, the gloves, the waiting, the refusal to hug family across zones. People hate being told that a husband must wave at a wife from opposite sides of a cafeteria rope because one came through floodwater with cuts and the other stayed dry. People hate rules most when rules are necessary, but the people who follow them remain alive long enough to hate them. At 10:15, the first state helicopter passes over, heading toward the hospital. Nobody cheers. It is too far away, too busy, and not for us yet. In the gym, a small boy points at the sound and asks if that means everyone can go home. His grandmother pulls him close and says not yet, not today, maybe not tomorrow. She says it in a tired voice, but not a broken one. Near noon, the rain slows to a light fall. The sky stays low and gray. Heat starts building inside the school because the air conditioning is gone and the generator cannot carry everything. Wet clothes sour. Tempers return. The infected outside do not leave with the storm. That is the part some people cannot accept. A hurricane passes. It has a track, a center, a forecast cone, an end. This does not. This remains in the water, in the bite wounds, in the people who sat in crowded rooms before anyone knew to separate them, in the buses that moved from coast to shelter, in the good hands that lifted injured strangers from flooded streets. At 12:20, First Baptist transmits again. The pastor is alive. He and 11 others are in the storage office and attic access above the fellowship hall. Altered persons remain below. Water has risen through the rear of the building and may be receding. He heard our bulletin on a battery radio. He asks if floodwater in a church building should be treated the same as street water. Bev answers yes, clean water only on wounds. Avoid contact. Stay elevated, mark location for rescue. The pastor says copy. Then he says, we opened the door because that was the right thing yesterday. Bev does not answer immediately. Then she says, yesterday had different rules. I write that line on the edge of my clipboard and keep it there. By afternoon, organized rescue begins in pieces. Not enough trucks, not enough protective gear, not enough deputies, not enough medical staff, but pieces matter. A high-water truck takes the pregnant mother and baby to the community college clinic once a controlled route is cleared. A National Guard crew moves the most fragile elderly evacuees from our dry zone to an inland shelter that has not reported infection. 2 buses are brought in and parked on the North Road for later transfer, but no one boards until the buses are cleaned and checked. That delay causes shouting. Principal Holt does not bend. Mara backs her. Paula keeps checking wounds. I keep relaying. The teenage boy with the cut palm recovers enough to sit up and eat crackers. He does not turn. His mother cries when Paula says he can move from isolation to observation. Not dry zone yet, but better. The son who cut his hand at the rear equipment door develops fever by late afternoon. He is moved upstairs. His father sits outside the room and does not argue with anyone anymore. The boat crew leader remains altered behind a locked fieldhouse door until a rescue team removes him using barriers and restraint equipment. Mara's deputy stays at the fence until mid-morning, then disappears into the flooded neighborhood when a truck horn sounds far away. Mara watches him go. She does not speak. Evening comes with no sunset, only darker cloud. East Ridge is still standing. The shelter is still divided. The doors are still controlled. We have lost people. We have also kept hundreds from mixing exposure with panic. I do not know whether history will call that success. Success feels too clean for a building with taped-off water on the floor and names crossed from one list to another. I make one more broadcast before night. County asks for it because people in flooded neighborhoods are still trying to move on foot. I use the official language again, then add what I can say without causing panic. I tell people the water is not only storm water now. I tell people a small cut matters. I tell people a crowded shelter is not safe unless it is controlled. I tell people to stay above floodwater, cover wounds, wait for screened rescue, and keep doors managed even when someone outside is shouting. I tell people to help with barriers, tools, lights, radios, clean water, and patience. I do not tell people everything will be fine. Nobody would believe it, and nobody should. When I finish, Principal Holt sits in the chair across from me and takes off her glasses. She has a red mark across her nose from wearing them all day. She asks if I think the bulletin reached enough people. I tell her yes because I need that to be true. She nods and closes her eyes for a few seconds. Outside, floodwater reflects the school's emergency lights in broken patches between parked cars. Altered persons move at the edge of the lot when sound reaches them. Living people wait on balconies and roofs for trucks that cannot come fast enough. Inside, people sleep sitting up, shoes on, bags under arms, children tucked between adults, every person aware of the doors. The hurricane did what hurricanes do. It pushed the county into shelters, buses, hallways, rescue boats, and shared rooms. It forced strangers to touch, lift, carry, crowd, and wait together. That is how people survive storms here. That is how this began moving faster than any of us could track. I am still at the radio when the next call comes from Coastal Tech. Another shelter, another wet intake, another bathroom line, another person with a cut who seemed fine an hour ago. I pick up the pencil, press the microphone, and answer with the voice I have left. East Ridge copies. Give me your status from the beginning.